Hello, welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Former President Trump has been indicted for a third time in the past year. The latest is a federal indictment related to the events that took place on January 6th following the 2020 election. The grand jury met today at the federal courthouse right here in Washington, D.C., where NTD's Iris Tao is following the latest developments.
Former President Trump has been indicted on a third set of felony charges, and this indictment is about his alleged involvement in a January 6th incident in the Capitol, which of course happened as the supporters were protesting the results of the 2020 election. And Special Counsel Jack Smith said this after the indictment.
The attack on our nation's Capitol on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial.
According to the unsealed indictment, Trump is now facing 4 charges, including conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to impede the January 6 congressional proceedings, conspiracy against the right to vote and to have the vote counted, and attempt to obstruct and impede certification of the electoral vote. And a recap of what happened this afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the federal grand jury at the federal courthouse right behind me here handed over the indictment to the judge. And actually shortly before this, Trump himself predicted this on social media by saying, quote, "I hear that deranged Jack Smith, in order to interfere with the presidential election of 2024, will be putting out yet another fake indictment of your favorite president, me, at 5 p.m. And Trump's also alleging election interference by asking, why didn't they do this 2.5 years ago? Why did they wait so long? Because they wanted to put it right in the middle of my campaign. And Trump's campaign also responded by putting out a statement after the indictment saying, quote, "The lawlessness of these persecutions of President Trump and his supporters is reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 1930s, the former Soviet Union, and other authoritarian dictatorial regimes." But it remains to be seen how this latest indictment would impact the 2024 presidential election. A new poll released this Monday shows that Trump still holds a wide lead over other GOP contenders despite his legal troubles. And of course, in the same poll, it shows that 7 in 10 Republican voters still stand behind Trump, saying that he has not committed any serious crimes. And now, of course, all eyes are on Thursday, when Trump is expected to come here to the federal courthouse right behind me. Of course, we'll also see how Washington will be stirred up by this latest indictment. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Strategically decoupling from the Chinese Communist Party. That's what some China hawks in Congress aim to do, and it appears they've taken the first steps. The House Select Committee on China is cracking down on U.S. investments to CCP-run companies. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
In the first solid action taken by the House's Select Committee on China, members are investigating 2 firms, BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager, and MSCI. It's a bipartisan effort, and the Republican chairman, along with the top Democrat on the committee, are saying that BlackRock has invested more than $429 million in Chinese companies that have been blacklisted by the government over either national security or human rights issues.
As a country, we have to have a national policy on outbound investment. We also have to look at why do we make it so favorable to invest in China still?
And when I recently asked Chairman Gallagher about strategically decoupling from China, he said that the economic aspect will be the hardest piece of the puzzle.
We have to figure out a way to reclaim our economic independence, to stop funding our own destruction, and to take the golden blindfolds off when it comes to the risks of doing business with Beijing.
The chairman is now introducing a bill to force tax-exempt entities such as nonprofits, universities, or public pension plans to divest from China, otherwise lose their tax-exempt status. Gallagher saying that these nonprofits must choose. Are they committed to their professed values or to financing a genocidal communist regime?
Do you think this is a step in the right direction?
Absolutely. I think that it shouldn't go only to nonprofits and higher education institutions.
And the Senate has taken action on Chinese investments too, recently passing a bill that would require U.S. firms to notify the Treasury if they're investing in Chinese tech companies. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
A new report shows over 100 colleges in the United States are still enforcing COVID vaccine mandates. That's more than 3 years after the pandemic first started. Here's NTD's Arian Pazdar with more.
An organization called No College Mandates recently posted this list, saying over 104 colleges in the U.S. are still mandating COVID vaccines for students. Among those institutions are Harvard, Rutgers, Johns Hopkins, and more. Back in May, the WHO and the CDC both said COVID-19 isn't a public health emergency anymore. No College Mandates describes itself as a group of concerned parents, doctors, nurses, professors, and more. I spoke with Dr. Clayton Baker, a medical expert with the organization.
Does it make sense to still have these mandates from a medical standpoint?
No, it makes no sense whatsoever. We knew as early as mid to late 2020 that the death rate and serious injury rate for young, healthy people was vanishingly small with COVID. So it really never made sense.
What's more, Dr. Baker tells me there are certain risks tied to young adults taking the COVID vaccine. He says studies show there's an increased risk of myocarditis after getting a COVID mRNA vaccine, especially for young men. And cardiologist Dr. Peter McCullough previously testified on the issue under oath. He said over 200 peer-reviewed studies show cardiovascular syndromes are directly attributable to COVID-19 vaccination.
What's more dangerous at this point, actually having a vaccine mandate or not having a mandate, which means there could be unvaccinated students probably getting COVID or possibly getting COVID?
Put it this way, the risk-benefit analysis for mandating vaccines in college students is absolutely to the negative. The benefit is negligible if it even exists, and the potential harms are death of students.
Almost 4,000 colleges across the U.S. have already let go of vaccine mandates or never required a COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Baker says the 100 still left should follow suit. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
The Biden administration is banning a popular type of light bulb. Starting today, manufacturers and retailers that sell incandescent and halogen light bulbs will be facing federal fines. The administration is instead pushing LED bulbs. The Energy Department says other kinds of bulbs waste too much energy. The federal agency says the bulb switch will save consumers around $3 billion per year on energy bills and cut carbon emissions. But the Residential Energy Consumption Survey says fewer than half of households reported using LED bulbs. The Energy Department has reversed a Trump-era rule protecting incandescent bulbs and consumer choice of lighting options. Consumer groups have also said that the perceived climate benefits of the new energy efficiency rules are, quote, speculative, assumption-driven, and prone to bias in the hands of agencies with a regulatory agenda. Setting temperature records in July around the globe. But does this mean that we're seeing changes in climate patterns? Joining us now to discuss, we have Diana Furchtgott-Roth, economist and director of Center for Energy, Climate, and Environment at the Heritage Foundation. Diana Furchtgott-Roth, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you.
Diana, July is on track to be the hottest month globally, I guess, on record. How significant is this, and what are some of the reasons behind the hot weather we've been experiencing?
Well, one hot month doesn't mean that climate change is happening. And some months are hot, some months are cool. It's summer, so we have a lot of hot months. On the other hand, today, on the 1st of August, the temperatures are unusually low. So temperatures jump around. And what's important is, what is our government doing about it? How is our government helping the American people get through this? How is the government hurting the American people? And even if we were to take all of fossil fuels out of the United States, eliminate them completely, it would only make a difference of 0.2 of 1 degree Celsius in the year 2100. But our government is imposing huge costs on the American people by trying to mandate that 60% of vehicles sold in 2030 be electric, and at the same time having another rule that would make electricity much more expensive by requiring power plants to get rid of 90% of carbon emissions or close down. For a lot of them, closing down is the only option.
Speaking of what our government is doing, John Kerry recently visiting China to discuss climate change. China generates apparently more wind and solar power than the rest of the world combined, yet is also the largest contributor of pollution. Do we run the risk of putting China on a pedestal while forgetting about the damage they cause, sort of like how we turn a blind eye to their human rights abuses and salivate over their economy?
We really do, because at the same time that John Kerry was there, President Xi made a speech saying he was not going to abide by Western timetables for reducing emissions. So with the Paris Agreement, he had said that China would peak its emissions in 2030 and reduce them thereafter. Now he is walking away from that, saying he will not do that. This is important because if China continues to emit carbon with its multiple coal-fired power plants, of which it's building more every week, then it doesn't matter what the rest of the world does. It doesn't matter what all the OECD countries do, because China's pollution is going to dominate global emissions. And last October, he said he wasn't going to reduce fossil fuel use until renewables could take over. And we know that renewables are never going to take over from fossil fuels.
So at the intersection of, say, record-breaking temperatures and climate change initiatives, what is the responsible approach and way forward?
The responsible way forward is, first of all, to measure temperatures carefully, because we have more urban areas. So we're getting higher temperature measurements because the thermometers are located in urban heat centers. So we need to be careful about measurements. There are academics who are doing series of rural measurements that avoids the urban heat centers. And just as an example, as I was driving home last Friday, my car thermometer measured 101 when I was in the middle of DC, and 10 minutes later it measured 91 when I got to the suburbs. So measurement is very difficult. We do not want to take rapid, drastic action. We want to move towards things that won't harm the economy, such as planting trees, making sure people have air conditioning, making sure people's gutters are cleaned so that when there's a violent summer storm, it doesn't cause flooding. These are the basics that we can do without imposing trillions of costs on the U.S. economy.
Diana Furchtgott-Roth, thank you so much.
Great to be with you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.